One of the issues that we think is particularly relevant to seniors is the question of injuries. Joining us today is someone that is well qualified to discuss this topic. She has been a sports medicine doctor at a leading sports medicine practice. She's been an AFL team doctor with AFL clubs Geelong and North Melbourne, and a team doctor in the National Basketball League with Geelong Supercats. I'd like to welcome Dr. Jeanne McGivern. Thanks for joining us today, Jeanne.
Thank you, Terry.
Jeanne, injuries. Certainly something that I've become more of an expert at in recent years, on the wrong side of those injuries. It seems to me, and I might be wrong, but do senior pickleball players have more problems with injuries? And if so, is there a reason for that?
That's an excellent question, Terry. The simple answer is yes. It's a matter of biology. As we age, physiology takes over and we have certain changes that take place. Those changes include reduced bone density and bone mass, reduced muscle mass, reduced reflex time, reduced balance with increased risk of falls, an increase in soft tissue stiffness, which can influence adversely the likelihood of injury to muscles and tendons. Seniors are also more susceptible to heat stress. On top of that, seniors are more likely to have pre-existing conditions, musculoskeletal and medical. Those musculoskeletal conditions include degenerative joint disease, tendinopathies, and all these may be aggravated by introducing a new load from an unaccustomed sport. Even more importantly are the medical conditions, of course. Whilst less frequent, things like cardiac events are obviously very serious, and seniors need to be aware of factoring in their general health.
Thanks, Jeanne. What would you think would be the most common injuries for seniors in terms of, I know at our club we've had quite a few calf strains, for example. Is that a common injury, or what are the most common injuries?
Yes, certainly there's been a little bit of epidemiological evidence on injuries in pickleball. It's a relatively new sport, so of course the studies aren't exhaustive. 75% of injuries are musculoskeletal and about 20% are medical conditions. Of course, these statistics are gathered in emergency departments where perhaps the medical emergencies will be overrepresented. But from the musculoskeletal point of view, falls are clearly an issue, and over 65, women tend to experience upper limb fractures, the classical fall backwards on an outstretched arm, whereas fractures in men are mainly lower limb, and they're often sadly more serious and more likely to result in hospital admission. But in terms of the commonest injury, it goes from general experience that calf strains and hamstring strains probably feature highly among the most common. And the scarier one is an Achilles rupture, because people expect an Achilles rupture to occur on a background of lots of pain and swelling. But in fact, Achilles rupture can be an acute episode on a background of no pain and swelling.
Thanks, Jeanne. The situation where players come in and walk in, don't warm up, start to play a game. What advice would you give to those players in terms of minimising the risk of these injuries that you're talking about?
Another good question, Terry. A warm-up should be an integral part of sport. We can all be a little bit lazy when it comes to warming up, but really it can be to our own disadvantage. Older players are perhaps more used to doing static stretching, but there is a huge body of evidence, and it has been for some time, showing that a dynamic warm-up is much more important. Dynamic warm-ups involve sport-specific activity. In other words, taking the actual muscular patterns and performing them deliberately on their own without having to worry about a ball or paddle or responding to play. 5 or 10 minutes should be sufficient. The role for static stretching is after play, when muscles are tight and tired. It's good to stretch them out to length so that you're ready to recover for the next session of pickleball.
So examples of a dynamic warm-up might be something like some jogging, some lunges, some shuffling movements, some calf raises, perhaps stuff like that.
Yes, Terry, those are all good examples. People can build their own warm-up to their own specifications and needs, but it would involve things like a warm-up activity such as jogging. It would involve building up muscles with calf raises, lunges, quarter squats, turning on all those lower body muscles. And let's not forget the upper limb, doing shoulder rotations, moving the arm across the body and away from the body, and perhaps even doing some press-ups against a wall just to tone up the shoulder muscles would be helpful.
There's a huge number of new players coming into the game. Many of them are seniors. They haven't played perhaps sport for many, many years. Suddenly they come into the game and start playing. What advice would you give to those players to prevent the risk of injury?
Terry, I believe these fall into two categories. There's the player who has previously played other sports to a high level. They adapt quickly to the skills of pickleball, and so they suddenly increase their volume, load and intensity too quickly for the tissues to adapt, and they're likely to succumb to injury. On the other hand, you have the group who have come through their lives without playing a lot of sport, or certainly for a very long time, and their risk is that they are deconditioned more than they realise, and they need to work on their muscle strength, their cardiovascular fitness and their flexibility to try and avoid injury.
So the message is for seniors, if you haven't played for a long time, do a conditioning program prior to playing, or certainly build up slowly. And if you are playing, make sure you warm up and cool down properly.
Absolutely. My golden rule through all my years in practice was avoid doing too much, too hard, too fast, too soon. And once you've reached a steady state, try not to have periods where you do nothing or periods where you suddenly do too much. Just don't upset the apple cart.
Sure. Oh, that's great information, Jeanne. So thanks very much for joining us today. It's been great to have you.
It's been my pleasure, Terry.